Welcome back, 1570 AM WNST. My next guest is Nestor Aparicio. Nestor, welcome in.
Staying warm, Dennis. Trying to make it to Sunday. Hey, cheap trick, huh?
Ah,
Huh?
saw them the other day with in Daryl's house with Daryl
Oh.
Hall, and man, I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. A clip on YouTube. They're fantastic. They really are.
Well, I've had a cheap trick thing all my life, right? Since 1979, with drawing the logo on my notebook and whatever.
Yeah.
So, this whole Steelers, Ravens, who's going to be in the stadium? A lot of Steelers fans. Who's going to stop them? No one. There were so many empty seats last week. I'm in for the fun of it. I'm in for the Harbaugh's not going to want to let Roethlisberger beat him on the way out the door. There's the 3% or 3.5%, depending on the new math as to how the Ravens meander in and the Jaguars wake up on the right side of the bed on Sunday and 5 other things happen and Halley's Comet comes back. But this game's got some drama. This game's got a little juice for me. I don't look. I'm not a gambler or whatever, but I think you could. This is the kind of game where you're like, yeah, battle of the wills. I mean, nobody's going to want to lose this game.
Yep.
I mean, this will be a snot knocker. I mean, even though stakes aren't like super high, it's not Monday Night Football, it's not Ray Lewis in his prime. Roethlisberger doesn't want to lose. These Steelers fans are going to come in. They're going to wave terrible towels. I think they'll do all over there except play renegade.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And for the fan base after it's clamoring for the Ravens to tank in order to get a higher draft pick, that's
Oh my
not
God!
going to happen.
Who are these people?
Right. Neither franchise, neither organization is even thinking about tanking this game to move up 2 or 3 or 4 draft spots. It's irrelevant. This game means a lot to the players, to the coaches, to the organizations. It sets a tone for next season as well. If should the Ravens not get into the postseason, but you can bet they're looking to pin a big L on Roethlisberger's illustrious career.
When I took phone calls for a living, you get all sorts of opinions and things like that. If you come at me with the fact that players are going to lay down, it just tells me how little you know. It's an immediate sign of your ignorance as to what's going on. Now, if you're saying they're going to put the second string in, I'll hear that. If you wager on such things, or if you feel like the organization, and certainly the Orioles are guilty of this, lots of organizations are guilty of tanking, but in a football game, I mean, can Tyler Huntley beat the Steelers mano a mano? If he could, somebody might pay him $30 million a year to do it, right? So he's going to be out there playing for a contract. All these guys are going to be out there playing for a contract. So if you're saying a franchise tanks because they don't sign players, don't spend money, fire sale, which I've talked about a lot this week because I had Tim Wendell on this week. We were talking about the baseball labor. I mean, baseball doesn't even have a sport right now. So I don't know what we're going to do when the sun sets on Sunday and we're not in the playoffs. Oh, shucks, we had a 3% chance and we beat Big Ben and make him hurt his feelings, or they come in here and beat us 41-14. I don't know. But either way, we've got the off season, and Omicron, where we are, all that, it's going to be a long 8 months. I mean, it really is for the organization. I think for the fans who are a lot more uppity than I am. I mean, I'll just say that. I do not feel cheated on the field by this Ravens team or the organization in any way. I've talked about letting go of my season tickets, and I'm going to write about that in the offseason, but it has nothing to do with me being disappointed with John Harbaugh's decision to go for 2, or anything that really, or Eric DeCosta bringing in Josh Bynes or Kevon Seymour, or these names we're going to remember because Marlon Humphrey hadn't been out there. Marcus Peters hasn't been out there. Ronnie Stanley hasn't been out there. J.K. Dobbins. I mean, we could sit here and say what ifs and buts and what ifs and all of that. Now, they're big boys out there. They dust off. They've been at this before. They've had their feelings hurt. Most of them were around. We got our feelings hurt by Peyton Manning 15 years ago, right? Harbaugh wasn't, but a lot of the rest of them were. Kukinis and all the same. I ran into Vince Newsom in the back bowels of the stadium the other day. He's been there from the beginning of time. Phil Savage, So this organization knows what it's doing. So if it's about me being the nasty Nestor 2001 and talking people off the tree and saying, don't jump, the Ravens will be fine or whatever. The Ravens will be fine, but the real worry is keeping up with Joe Burrow now and keeping up whatever the next thing is. And if Jacksonville gets a real coach, they probably have a real quarterback, right? So these other organizations that have worked in analytics, study what the Ravens are doing, may or may not even believe in what Lamar Jackson represents in that offense and whether you can really win a Super Bowl with your quarterback running like this, although colleges are making quarterbacks like this now, right? So, look, they were the pioneers. They've taken the arrows. This is going to be a tough arrow when your quarterback doesn't make it to the field the last month of the season and you don't make the playoffs, sort of kind of because of it. I don't know what else to say. Maybe Lamar could have been a magician and gotten 11 wins out of this, and they would have won one of two of these games that they've lost had Lamar played. But Lamar didn't play. And it should not be shocking that when your quarterback runs in the linebackers 4 years into the game, at some point in week 11, some bad ish is going to happen, Dan, you know?
Nestor, speaking of the beginning of time, I've been watching the Steelers with Terry Bradshaw under center and transitioning to the Mark Malones, the Cordell Stewarts, the Tommy Maddoxes, right to Roethlisberger. So the two big,
Mike Tomczak, throw him in there. Somebody gave me his name.
Forgot about Tomczak.
Somebody gave me it.
But
did you do Neil O'Donnell? Did you get him in there?
Didn't get O'Donnell in there either.
He was a Super Bowl quarterback.
He lost the Super Bowl. He did. Forgot about him, but for me,
he a Terp.
He is. But the Terps sent a lot of quarterbacks that are pros. But my point here is now, so they've gone from a Super Bowl champion and Terry Bradshaw. He won 4 rings. Roethlisberger has won 2 rings, right? So you got 6 Super Bowls between those 2 quarterbacks, and they represent, some of the legendary players in that storied organization. So they're also in transition. They'll be looking for a quarterback in the offseason via free agency, but more than likely in the NFL draft.
Doesn't this go back to DNA that we talk about all the time in leadership, that you get the vibe that if Sean Payton sticks around New Orleans long enough, he'll figure it out again? And Belichick's already figured it out. Belichick's playing next week and we're not, with a rookie quarterback, right? So you get the feeling that Cincinnati's going to screw this up somehow, right? Like, literally, Cleveland's already screwed up the Baker Mayfield and the Stefanski, and they're going to be on to another coach in 15 months. Watch. So, and it might not be 15 months. So, around here, we don't think that way, and I don't think they think that way with the Rooney family up in Pittsburgh either. I don't know what the solution is. I would encourage you, and, I have done less sports lately, but I still bring on the best guest, right? So this week, it's Pittsburgh week. Ed Bouchette, who's literally covered the Steelers since 1974. Okay, so so Ed comes on this week and he said he's never seen anything like this Roethlisberger thing. And I started to think, like, all right, I mean, it's Roethlisberger. What's so special about him? And then I'm thinking about what's special about him is Ray Lewis has been gone a decade, and it's way into the Hall of Fame. And John Ogden walked on fields with Roethlisberger. And, Roethlisberger has been so ubiquitous with what they do. But I remembered, and I brought this up, Mike Tomlin, when he picked me up that day back in 15, we did the Give a Spit tour, he took me all around the city, and he's like, hey, man, I got a place I got to show you, man. You got to see this place. And I didn't even know it existed. And he turned the corner. There's a bridge with all the Pittsburgh legends on it. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not, no.
Oh, I'm going to have to share the picture and maybe even find the picture. But I will definitely find the picture. Mm-hmm. There's an alleyway with the image of Clemente, Stargell, Franco. Nice. It's one of the, and it's all in, I think Marino might be on, people from Pittsburgh. It's a Pittsburgh, it's beautiful. I mean, it's like a street painting. And I said to him, where does Roethlisberger sit on that? And then I had to really think, and Ed got indignant. Ed almost acted like I offended the Steeler in him. You know what I mean? He took the community thing. He's like, no. They didn't get rid of Chad Brown because of this or that. It was money and Kevin Green and Lloyd and I'm like, dude, they had so many. Woodson played for us. Right. Woodson's got a ring from us. He was out last week with us. So I said, you've had great players, but Franco Harris wore a Seattle Seahawk hat at the end, right? So guys escaped and won other places. This is and Bettis went out in his hometown with the Super Bowl, had his own thing. But Bettis was a Ram too, right?
Yeah, he was.
But with Roethlisberger, he's been the guy the whole time. 2 eras of Ravens football, right? I mean, he had wars with Billick and he had wars with Harbaugh, and we've had that kind of a thing here. But I thought to myself, they haven't had a player like this, right? He said Rocky Blyer got to go out on his own terms at the end, but he said other than that, no one else is really had this sort of thing. And the Pirates, I mean, Barry Bonds and all the guys that were there, that Bonilla and these guys that went other places, nobody ever got the hometown hero thing since Stargell, since Clemente, of that era. Things that make us puke around here, as my dad, But I would say for Roethlisberger, for Ed to say that about Roethlisberger, it got me scratching my head, right? And I see that, the competitor down the dial that just lost the baseball rights is calling all the old Steelers and got Cower on because they're CBS and all that. I called Marvin. And you know what Marvin said? Go watch the Marvin. Marvin did 25 minutes of me from the desert the other day, and Marvin's lighting's terrible. I'm giving him a hard time about it. He looks like a black shadow of Marvin Lewis with a white. He's got the window behind him, but the desert's behind him. So he said, "Roethlisberger's the reason I'm out here, man."
That's funny. That's too funny. Yeah. Tough division, right? Tough place to make a living.
Well, but I guess this is the point, and I'll make how about this as a point? If I were on the radio all week taking phone calls from pissed off people that don't sell your tickets and all that stuff, I'd say this. I'd say if we could go back in time right now and Ray Lewis was playing out the string in a 7-8 season in Pittsburgh and they're 8-7 and neither one of us has a chance and the weather's no good, how many of us would get in our car, drive to Breezewood, pay $112 for a ticket to go in on a cold day to watch Ray Lewis try to beat the Steelers one last time? If we could do that, if we could have that day back one time, maybe not with Ed Reed, who went on other places, John Ogden, who is my beloved and like all of that, but Ray, I mean, this is their Ray. He won championships there in 2 eras with 2 coaches, lost the Super Bowl, has always been in the fight, has always kicked our ass or tried, sent Marvin into retirement, like literally, right? So going to the Hall of Fame, nobody's doubting that. And these people want to come down here and honor their king. Should we let them know? But should you sell your tickets for $200? Hey, they're your tickets. So God bless you. So whatever that means. But for them to want to come down here and be a part of it, I tip my cap. I really do. I mean, it's been 27 years of war. I used to spit in their direction 25 years ago. Now I exchange holiday greetings with the head coach. So things are weird. Life moves on. I'm 53. I have immense respect for what Roethlisberger represents, maybe even more so than I did last week. Like, having talked to Marvin and Ed Bouchette this week and having thought about it in those terms of if we could go watch Ray Lewis play in Cleveland the last game, Cincinnati, there would be a purple snack line out I-70 to witness it. So, it's going to be a bunch of yabos from Harford County who wave terrible towels and aren't even from Pittsburgh. I remember all that from 20 years ago. Maybe they come to honor Roethlisberger, but I have a feeling that there's somebody in Pittsburgh who's a 23-year-old kid who remembers when he was drafted when he was 5 years old. They're Johnny Unitas, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, as long as they don't tear the town up, as long as they tip, and we sell them overpriced beer at an overpriced, and it's warm because they're from Pittsburgh. But no, but I mean, seriously, this is a special game, and it's so special that they brought Cheap Trick in.
That's right. And how cool is it that Terrell Suggs will be the Ravens legend at the game? And of course, he had many great battles against Roethlisberger, but there is mutual respect between those 2 competitors for sure.
Yeah, I've met Terrell Suggs, so I don't get excited about him.
Understood, but for Ravens fans, Ravens Nation, etc.
Oh, dude, if it bakes the place up, if it gets the place baked up, because there's going to be terrible towels everywhere. I promise you. I mean, there's no avoiding that. And I got a geezer story for you. Let's tell you how old I am, Dan. 1983, final Colts year here. My dad even sensed the team was going to move. And I don't know why, because, teams didn't move much. You know what I mean? Didn't we? I mean, you're older than, right? You remember this era, right?
I was there. I had season tickets to the Colts back then.
Okay, so you were there the day the Steelers fans all came in, and they literally, I'll never forget it. They had both end zones.
Yep.
And they had the seats that you and your dad didn't want, right? The seats that were the lower 15, because there was no pitch at Memorial Stadium. It was a baseball field. It wasn't straight up. Right. So if you were in the 10th row, you were looking at 10 heads and the players in the way. There's Nelson Muncy over there in the way. I don't know who's on the 8. Mike Pagel, whoever's on the team, and Ed Simonini. There you go. There you go. Nesby Glasgow. I'm going after it now, Dan. So that day, my cousin came down with his girlfriend at the time from Delaware, my mom's nephew, and came down for the game, and he still remembers it like he's not a Steelers fan. He's more of an Eagles fan. He's from Newark, Delaware, and he came down. He wound up marrying the girl from that day, and they've been married for 40 years or whatever, Diana. But Gibby and Diana came down, and they went with me and my dad on the bus, and they thought, like, my God, the Colts are leaving. Like, there be no more Colts, and they saw one of the last games. But there were 30,000 Steelers fans at that game, right?
It was a home game for them. They were much louder than the home team fans, for sure. It was
much better than us too, as I remember.
It was embarrassing. They had a better team. Everybody had a better team than us back then. But those terrible towels left a lasting memory back there in my.
Took me 30 years to get over it.
Yeah, I was 19 years old. I was there.
As I'm wearing my Coonsford Oiler blue Columbia. Hey, you know what? At the game, this is one of the things about the fan base, right? And guys like you and me aren't going, and I will write tombs for the rest of my life about why I'm not sitting in my seats, but because they're my seats and I wanted my ashes spread in them, literally. So, but I would just say this, for the people going and experiencing the game and buying their ticket on SeatGeek or, buying my tickets on the web or, whatever they're doing, right? It's become less hostile, right? I mean, for a Ravens-Steelers game like this, there would be arrests, drunken stupor, cops would be coming up with billy club. You remember, come on, man, right? I mean, we witnessed that always. Yankees, Orioles, all that. A lot of the air's out of that tire, right? Like in that way. And I was with my wife. We went to the game together, one of our last endeavors, and we sat in our seats like we used to do, like we did for 26 years. And I walked back at halftime, and there was a dude in the hot dog stand with a Warren Moon blue jersey on. And I looked, and I saw an Aaron Rodgers jersey. I saw a Kaepernick jersey. I saw, there was a time when if anybody wasn't wearing purple 15 years ago, you'd be like, they didn't get the memo? What's wrong with it? It'd be like going to a whiteout at a college game wearing green or something. You know what I mean? Like, everybody was down with it. I'm worried about a lot of stuff, COVID, the offseason, sports in general, and whatever. I'm particularly worried for the Ravens right now that this is a disappointment. And these 8 months of disappointment, given where the Orioles might not make it to the field, right? Like, they're on strike, right? So they're whatever they are, walked out, locked out, firing Ken Rosenthal. Can you imagine? Disgraceful. My partner, and believe me, Ken and I have had our battles. We don't even really speak all that often. I mean, for knowing each other for 40 years. But I got any journalist's back. So period on that. But I am worried. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You and I aren't getting in the car and going to a Terps game or Caps game or Wizards game or I'd go to a Loyola game with you or UMBC, something local or whatever. But we can't even do that right now. That when sports gets off the radar, and we were at this 2 years ago, people really miss it. But I remember a guy that went fishing, right? I remember a guy that took on new hobbies. And I remember people whose lives changed during the pandemic and people like me and my wife that are about to leave downtown. And I came downtown to go to baseball games. I moved downtown in 2003 in love with the love of my life, married at 33, press pass, the radio station, sports radio. I moved downtown. I dedicated my life to downtown to sit at Phillips at the piano bar, hang out at Hooters like I did with Messina, and all those years at Brady Anderson, and walk up to Oriole games and be a part of the magic of Oriole baseball. My script has turned out differently 18 years later, but and my script's still unwritten, you know what I mean? I think what we're doing around here, but when football ends, we're going to cover football. Luke's going to cover football. We have no access. Players aren't coming out and doing shows. Coaches aren't coming on the air to talk about their hopes and dreams for the draft. I mean, that's just not the way it is anymore, and that's unfortunate, That's unfortunate.
Well, we had a golden era here, particularly with the Ravens, and we had a collegiate type of love for the love affair with the team. Like you mentioned, everybody was wearing purple. Everybody was all in, but the NFL has changed since then. Much has changed, right? The game itself has changed. The money's different. The players are different. The rules are different. And here we are.
Hey, listen, I'm not get off my lawn at all. More than that, Go down to the stadium and root against Roethlisberger. Go buy the tickets. Go keep him out of the hands of but I'm kind of like the Kevin Bacon guy in Animal House where the marbles are rolling and the chaos is breaking out. And it's like, stop. No, don't go. Like, I'm the one that told you about Angelos 20 years ago. You know what I mean? I'm the guy that told the truth all along. Ken Rosenthal was the guy who told the truth all along, and he just got the same treatment from Manfred that I got from Angelos 15 years ago, and that's just very, very unfortunate. That's not good for fans. It's not good for sports. It's not good for cities. It's not good for filling seats. It's just not good for filling seats.
Well, sometimes, one has to pay attention to the canary in the coal mine, right? When that canary stops singing, there's a reason when he collapses. You better get out. You better take different action.
Well, I love the Ravens. I love everything they represent. I love every memory. I go through them all the time. All I do is polish off purple memories at this point because I haven't been in a room with a football player in 2 years, right? And there's no commitment to local media to like say, hey, we should put Lamar on Baltimore Positive once a year for 8 minutes and let Nestor ask him a couple of questions. But I saw the Rolling Stone interview with Lamar. It did not go well. I don't know if you've seen that one yet.
I didn't see it, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vaccines and, like real questions. The kinds of things that would happen if a locker room was open. People would come up and say, hey, you're the MVP of the league. You missed last week. Talk in the same way that Aaron Rodgers is doing shows and reading Ayn Rand and telling people to not get vaccinated, right? So everybody's got a voice in the new era, including us, you and me here at NST and what we're doing. But football, for local purposes, will probably end this week. But I know the offseason becomes more intense with combines, draft, off-season, free agency, lots of age, salary cap issue. I mean, all of that becomes the focus, as Billick would say, the time for pay instead of the time for play. But it's going to be a great tournament. I mean, I'm interested in the NFL. It's appointment viewing for me. I mean, they're going to play a Monday night game in the wild card. I'm going to be watching a Monday night game in the wild card, right? So, I haven't turned on the hockey or the NBA or, the college games are canceling now. So, I mean, the NFL, once again, we're all locked in the house. It snowed twice this week, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we want our football. And, and it's a shame we're not a part of it, but I have no hard feeling animosity at all about this particular team. This team achieved, worked hard, won close games, lost close games, made tough decisions, had bad breaks. Didn't see T.J. Watt in the slot with a pass. Made a 66-yard field goal, right? I mean, and maybe at the end we'll end the career of Ben Roethlisberger with a loss to a backup quarterback. Maybe I should call Charlie Batch. Maybe I should call him this week.
Call Charlie Batch and Ryan Mallett and talk about their victories as backup quarterbacks. Ness, I appreciate the time as always. Stay well. We'll be tuning in for sure. We're going to watch the game one way or another.
Hey, listen, there will be times when we will put people on buses and go back to Pittsburgh for AFC championship games at the Confluence. You know what I mean? Those are the things you want to hold on to if you have any of those memories from events you went to. I mean, I know I do. I mean, ballroom
Absolutely.
Parties, thousands of people showing up, Purple Pride, the feelings of the loss of having to walk across the bridge, and then the victory in Foxborough. And Roethlisberger lost the Super Bowl. We ain't never done that. Remember that.
That's right. There he goes. Nestor J. Aparicio here, 1570 AM. WNST will take a quick break. Come back right after this.